Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the New South Wales Police Force Rescue and Bomb Disposal Unit. The events of December last year, I still believe, was a day and the event that, in fact, stole some of our innocence as a nation. It was an event that will be with us and live with us forever in history. Before I hand over to the Prime Minister and to the Premier, would like just to say a few things. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the loss of the families, the Johnson and the Dawson families. Your loss is still with us. We still mourn with you. I don't think that will ever change. Also to those that had to go through that terrible event, those siege victims that were trapped for so long, we think of you. But I also want to pay my deep respect and honour all of the emergency service workers that were involved in freeing and saving so many lives. To those that were on the street, to those that were in control rooms, in command centres, your contribution needs to be acknowledged, and today it is. But I'd also like to pay my specific and special respect to our tactical people that actually went through that door and into that building to rescue our people. Those brave men gave everything, in fact put their lives on the line for a reason. That's because they were committed, like I was committed, to get as many people out of there as well as we possibly could in as short as possible time. So to those men and to all that were involved, please, from my perspective, I'd like to thank you. And lastly, I'd like to thank the Australian community, but particularly Sydney-siders. Your spirit shone through. You, like all of us, were horrified by what you saw, but that didn't keep you down. That actually brought out the best of everyone that I saw in Sydney, everyone I met, everyone I spoke to. Australia can be proud of the way you responded to what was a horrible event. Having said that, that determination is what makes Australia the great country that it is, and it's what makes me proud to be one of you, an Australian. So to you, to all that were involved, thank you. I'll hand over now to the Prime Minister of Australia, Tony Abbott. Sir, if I can, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much, Commissioner, and thanks very much to the Premier and our respective heads of the public service who are with us today. As the Commissioner has just said, the events of December were an atrocity. It was a terrible brush with politically motivated violence, but it was a tragedy of monumental proportions, particularly for the Dawson and Johnson families, and our hearts go out to them today, as they always will. All of us continue to feel for them in their terrible loss. But as governments, it's important that we learn the right lessons from this particular event and the chain of events leading up to the Martin Place siege. And I want to thank the Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, Michael Thorley. I want to thank the Secretary of the Premier's Department, Blair Comley, for the work they've done in producing this report. It's a very accessible report. It's a very readable report. It's got clear recommendations, and it is something that will repay a close study and will prompt a lot of thought and debate in the days and weeks and months ahead. Plainly, this monster should not have been in our community. He shouldn't have been allowed into the country. He shouldn't have been out on bail. He shouldn't have been with a gun, and he shouldn't have become radicalised. Plainly, all of these things should not have happened. The difficulty is that while he was well and truly on a lot of radar screens, he was routinely assessed as not being a threat to himself or the community. Plainly, at some stage, he did become a threat. We obviously do need more checks and more scrutiny in the visa process, in the citizenship process. We do need to renew and redouble our efforts in countering violent extremism, and I'll have a lot more to say on those subjects tomorrow as part of my national security statement. Obviously, in a society such as ours, we cherish the rights of the individual, as we should. We cherish the fact that we are a free and open and welcoming society, as we must always be. But what's pretty obvious from this report is that at every stage, this individual was given the benefit of the doubt. And plainly, the cumulative effect of the benefit of the doubt being given to him time and time again is that he was able to wreak havoc on our community. There is an ongoing and inevitable debate in a country such as ours, in a society such as ours, between the rights of the individual and the protection of the community. And my judgment is that while having always to respect both, the question of precisely where we draw the line in the era of terrorism will have to be reconsidered, and the line may have to be redrawn. I want to say a couple of things before I throw to the Premier. First of all, I'm very proud of the way the New South Wales Police and the other emergency services handled the actual siege itself. Yes, we mourn the loss of Tori Johnson and Katrina Dawson. We always will. But the commitment and the professionalism of the New South Wales Police that was on display that day, I believe to have been exemplary. I also want to pay tribute to the cooperation at every level between our police forces, our security agencies, our crime-fighting bodies. There is a degree of trust and cooperation between different agencies and different levels of government which is almost unimaginable just a decade or so back. They are ever vigilant to keep us safe, and almost every day we are seeing new examples of the effectiveness of their work. Just 10 or 12 days ago, an imminent terrorist attack was thwarted because of swift action by the New South Wales Police, supported by our other agencies. Finally, I want to say that no one is more committed than I am to keeping our community safe. No one is more committed than this government to keeping our community safe. I can put my hand on my heart and say that as I love this country, I will not rest until I am absolutely confident that we are doing everything we humanly can to protect our community from those who would do us harm. And I'm very proud to be standing with Mike Baird. We worked very closely together on that terrible day, as we do so often on so many issues, but we certainly worked very closely together on that terrible day, and I'm proud to have such a comrade.
Thanks, Prime Minister. I too just want to start and say I wish we weren't here. I really do. The events in the middle of December last year are still raw. They still impact all of us, and we are all grieving, as the Prime Minister and the Commissioner has said. But we are particularly mindful of the victims' families and friends today. They are going through times and events and circumstances we can't really imagine, but we do want them to know we continue to be with them, as you have heard. We're also very mindful of the hostages. They will have scars for life through what they have been through, and they are going through very difficult times now. And we also want them to know that in their challenges ahead, we want to walk with them as they do. The report that has come forward today, the review, I want to thank in particular the Prime Minister. I want to thank his department and my department. I think collectively all agencies who have provided input in this have done a good job. They have brought forward a number of recommendations that we are implementing, and we thank them for the work that they have done. And I think the main point I want to make in relation to the review is, whilst the review says that the decisions made by agencies were reasonable in the circumstances they faced, and there were many decisions over many years that were made, I think collectively we say, despite this, the community has a strong sense, as I do, that the system let them down. The system has let the community down. So the recommendations that have come forward, we need to act and we need to respond, and we will be doing exactly that. I think in relation to those recommendations, the New South Wales report is online and you will see our response. There's a couple of points I did want to highlight in particular. There is a point made in relation to identified terror suspects, so people that are certainly confirmed as identified terror suspects. The recommendation is that that information should be provided as part of any bail decisions. Now, I have a view that it should actually go further, and this is what we're working with agencies over the coming weeks and months, that if someone is identified as a terror suspect and if they are intercepted in the New South Wales judicial system and they are charged with a serious offence, well, I have a view they should not be provided bail in that circumstance. Now, we have to work through how that is affected, and we will be working through with agencies, the police, the federal authorities to make sure that's the case. But I have a strong sense that is one of the things that we need to be doing as part of this. In addition, there's also some comments in relation to reduction of illegal firearms. We'll be working through that. You know, what is it that we can do as a state and nation to take close to 250,000 illegal firearms? That's the expectation at the moment across the country, and I think we need to look at all options we can to ensure we reduce the number of illegal firearms across this state and nation. I do also want to conclude in relation to the permanent memorial. I think it's appropriate to reflect that will be in place at the anniversary. We are consulting with victims' families and friends together with the hostages to ensure that we have something that is a reminder of what happened in December last year. A reminder also of events after it. And I think the Commissioner said this as well. I still reflect and am absolutely proud of what I saw of this city coming together like never before, this state and indeed country coming together. Those events after it, actions that were there to divide us and to incite hate, actually brought unity and peace. And that's what we saw in the event, and we need to remind ourselves of that response, notwithstanding the events that we saw and the tragedy of those. So we need to bring honour and memory to those victims that we lost, but we also need to remind ourselves that as the city and state and country came together, they were the great things about us as a people, about us as a nation, and that is something that we'll be commemorating as we bring forward that permanent memorial by the time of the anniversary.